You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So I get shellfish is pretty expensive. If you buy lobster, shrimp, crab, it's kind of costly. And so I guess some people, if they find that on the beach, they grab it and they eat it. I wouldn't advise that. There could be poisoning. In fact, the FDA is now urging members of the public to avoid eating shellfish that they find on the beach. This is, I believe, a beach in Oregon, because 31 people have fallen seriously ill. Why? Well, because these sea creatures have been contaminated with toxins that cause, quote unquote, paralytic shellfish poisoning. This poisoning could be fatal. It could require life support to aid breathing. You could have diarrhea, vomiting, headaches, numbness, but there is an advisory issued to Oregon and neighboring Washington to not eat shellfish you find on the beach. They want people to avoid oysters and bay clams harvested at Netarts and Tillamook Bays in northern Oregon. This has been going on since May 28th, as well as shellfish harvested from areas around Willapa Bay in southern Washington, because they could be contaminated with PSP, or paralytic shellfish poisoning. It's a naturally occurring toxin produced by algae. They say shellfish harvested from these areas during the period were distributed beyond Oregon and Washington. So those of us in Arizona, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, New York may be eating some of these in restaurants or retailers. So elevated levels of the toxins were first detected in shellfish on the Oregon coast on May 17th, according to State Fish and Wildlife. Since then, a paralytic shellfish poisoning outbreak has sickened 31 people in Oregon. The agency has asked people who ate the shellfish to fill out a survey to kind of help investigators find out where they got it from. Are they picking it up from the beach? Are they getting it at restaurants? And now the coastline has been closed. Oregon authorities have closed the state's entire coastline to the harvesting of mussels, razor clams, not closed for beach, but closed in terms of harvesting the mussels, razor clams, and bay clams. And 3 bays have been closed as well. So paralytic shellfish poisoning is caused by saxitoxin, a naturally occurring toxin produced by algae. It's a neurotoxin that could damage nerve tissue. You could begin getting sick within 30 minutes. It acts very quickly. Your lips could get numb. Your mouth could get numb. You could have vomiting, diarrhea, shortness of breath. And we don't really have an antidote. All we do is supportive measures to help you breathe and help you overcome. Some of you will say, but Dr. Daliah, I freeze all my fish. What? So? You freeze your fish. You know, we want your fish frozen fresh in terms of bacteria and stuff, but the toxins could still be there. And it's interesting because people ask, Dr. Daliah, why do Jews not eat shellfish? How come Jews can't? What was going on with shellfish? Well, shellfish has been notorious in terms of foodborne illness. The dorsal vein of many crustaceans can carry toxins. And so when you look at the rules of kashrut in the Old Testament, many of them are for the health and safety of people, like pork. Eating pork, if it's undercooked, pork has been notorious for parasites, for foodborne illness. So in the Old Testament, we're not supposed to eat it. If it's, there's like 613 laws in the Old Testament. So adding food cooking laws, I think God probably said, you know what, they're not going to get it right anyway. So why don't we just say no pork, simplify it for everybody? And I get it. Look, I've had Canadian bacon. Oh, it's delicious. I mean, I know what I'm missing by not, eating pork and eating shellfish. But the reason why it's not kosher is because of the medical implications. Now in modern day, we know how to cook food. We have protocols. Restaurants are supposed to follow protocols, but looks like sometimes they don't. And so God's way of keeping us, safe is saying don't eat it. People ask about the LDS, the Mormon food choices and some of their rules. And, they're a lot of it is for the health. When you don't drink alcohol, when you avoid certain sodas, it's interesting how religion will also incorporate health. I could do a whole book on, a whole series on the Bible and the health implications and it's because, in religion, we want longevity, we want procreation, we want to work side by side with survival of the fittest. And so if we're going to have laws for the respect of animals, like we can't mix milk and meat in the Old Testament, that's out of respect. You don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. And so it's a respect issue for the animals. Animals have to be killed as painlessly as possible so that they don't suffer. And, there's all these rules. Of course, they're going to incorporate rules in terms of food safety. But we have to take extra care as it pertains to pork, as it pertains to shellfish. And oysters. Oysters are another example of something you can't eat according to the Old Testament. And look at what we've had in terms of oysters and vibriosis. And, it doesn't cause a lot of death. We don't have a lot of people dying from these. But the fact that that potential is there reminds us that, look, if you do have a choice, don't. But if you don't have a choice and you really want to eat it, make sure they're properly cooked. Make sure they're properly processed. Because unfortunately, you could suffer from some pretty severe illness. So for those of you that have felt not so right, aren't really sure where your fish came from, talk to the local restaurant. They should have that transparency and let you know. 1-877-DOC-Daliah. Don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right, We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen, and big thanks to Daniel, our producer. So we are starting to see now in 2024 the rebounders, the Ozempic, Wegovy, plateauers, and these drugs, these GLP-1 agonists, have been a godsend in terms of cravings also that not only dissuade you from eating, but also alcohol, and for reducing food noise, and for many people losing weight. But what we're starting to now see is a little bit more reality. What happens when people can't afford the medication? What happens when the insurance isn't approving more? What happens when the medicine wears off? What happens if you can't stand the constipation or the gastroparesis or some of the other side effects? And people are noticing the weight coming back. And so a question keeps coming up as to what is more effective. What is the most effective way to lose weight? Is it Weight Watchers? Is it Jenny Craig? Is it these weight loss drugs? Is it intermittent fasting? Is it doing weight loss surgery? Well, I have seen the gamut of things. I've seen people do weight loss surgery and do amazing, and I've also seen them bounce right back. I've seen people on weight loss drugs lose the weight, bounce right back. And so in my practice, the answer is different strokes for different folks. For some of you, something's going to work. For others of you, something else will work. Well, what do the studies show? Well, they vary, but this is one of the latest studies. So according to the New York Post, they found that weight loss surgery is more effective than obesity drugs, and they have some numbers and statistics for you all. They say metabolic and bariatric surgery remains the most effective and durable treatment for severe obesity. But according to co-author and bariatric surgeon Dr. Marina Kurian from NYU Langone Health, she says it remains the most underutilized. So they looked at data of 20,000 weight loss patients who participated in clinical studies and trials in the last few years. They found that obesity drugs and weight loss surgery proved far superior to diet and exercise. Diet and exercise resulted in weight loss of 7.4%. And those pounds were regained within 4 years. 5 months of weekly injections of semaglutide, which is Ozempic and Wegovy, led to a 10.6% weight loss, so over 7.4%. Okay, but there's regain. Going into, though, the weight loss, Ozempic Wegovy led to 10.6% weight loss by mimicking GLP-1, which is a hormone that helps produce satiety and makes you feel full, reducing cravings, slow down the transit. 9 months after tirzepatide, which is your Mounjaro and Zepbound, there was a 21.1% weight loss. Now, that's still apples and oranges because it's two different drugs at two different times. But this is the take-home message of that. They said the researchers found that once the Mounjaro and Zepbound stopped, or the Ozempic and Wegovy stopped, patients regained about half the weight they had lost. Tirzepatide patients who continued with the injections tended to plateau at 17 to 18 months with 22.5% of their weight loss. Patients on semaglutide hit a roadblock at 14.9% of their weight loss. Now, still, bravo, fantastic numbers, but if you need to lose a couple 100 pounds, it looks like there might be limitations. So what about the surgical procedures? Well, two popular surgical procedures, sleeve gastrectomy and then the bypass surgery. Let me double check if that's what, the sleeve gastrectomy and gastric bypass. Good. Those are the ones. Produced a weight loss of 30% 1 year after the operation. And patients maintained 25% of their weight loss up to 10 years after surgery. So what that means is the surgery appeared to produce a more longer-term effective weight loss. Now, for those of you saying, Dr. Daliah, what about the risks of surgery? I'm not telling you to go and have bariatric surgery. I'm not telling you that. There are risks. But why would that be? Why would the shots still pale in comparison in terms of the surgery? Well, a gastric bypass, you are really rerouting a lot of your anatomy. And so, there's a chance that your body learns the new anatomy and then may adjust with the metabolism. With sleeve gastrectomy, the hanging pouch, let me see if I can make a stomach, the hanging, so let me see if I can, okay, all right, how about this? Okay, these are the tubes, right? Let's say, but you have this bulge in your stomach. They remove that bulge, so now you have less stomach. So you feel more full, but it doesn't mess with the tubing and the plumbing of your GI system. So sleeve gastrectomy is a very popular, less risky weight loss surgery because it doesn't involve a rerouting and a reorganization of the pipe of the tubes in order to make your digestion continue, and fewer side effects if they're just removing an extra bag of that. The lap band procedure is falling out of favor. That's where there was a band that would go around the stomach to shrink it and try to shrink the stomach, and many people reject it. They had issues with that, or it slipped, so that kind of fell out of favor. But the reason why it was popular is it was a temporary, non-invasive form of a way to shrink your stomach. So stomach shrinking is the common denominator of the weight loss surgery, as opposed to the weight loss drugs is working on your mind. Well, your mind knows how to overcome. Your mind knows when it's getting fooled. We talked about that with Chantix and the smoking cessation medication. Chantix is a fantastic tool to help you quit smoking, but it's a nicotine decoy. It makes your brain think that you're getting the nicotine, so that when you do quit smoking, and you need to quit smoking day 8, while you take this medication to help with the cravings, you'll have less cravings. But if you're smoking while on the medication, your brain's like, wait a second. All right, if this is the true nicotine, then what's this? And then, you could struggle in terms of doing well. Well, same thing with these medications. Your brain is going to learn that you are artificially subduing a hormone response. And for some people, like Tracy Morgan, he burned right through it. He said he gained 40 pounds right through the medication. For other people, they're like, it's just not working. I still want food. I'm still hungry, because the brain will overcome. Remember, your brain's job is to make sure you survive. So if you don't want to eat and your brain picks up that you're not healthy, your brain's going to try to get you to eat again. So it's no wonder that the surgical procedures might have more efficacy. The other thing, too, is if you're going to be going through the cost and going through all that, you might be more willing to stick with the diet plan. And your GLP-1 agonist, the shots work if before you start injecting yourself, you have your meal plan. I'm going to have my vegetables. I'm going to drink plenty of water. I'm going to have fish, only red meat once or twice a month. We're done with sugar. We're done with alcohol. This is my plan. And then I'm going to use the shot to just minimize and temper those cravings. That's not what the average person's doing. They're getting the shot and they're like, Jesus, take the wheel, and I'm going to burn, just plow through this and be able to look at any food, walk through any candy store, and the shot's going to help me. Well, no. So you need to have a plan. And those doctors who do bariatric surgery and these, like I love Dr. Darren Soon and Dr. Jim Atkinson. They've done a lot of my patients in terms of the sleeve gastrectomy and weight loss intervention. These people are on a plan. I mean, they get the therapy, the training, the support. You need that. Many individuals are getting Wegovy online. Where's your support? Where is that cheerleading? The reason why Weight Watchers has been so successful, and I'm not doing a commercial for Weight Watchers, they're not a sponsor, but the reason why Weight Watchers was so effective were the in-person classes where you're cheerleading. You had to go to class. You went on a scale. Nobody had to know what the scale said, but if you dropped points, bells and whistles, there were gifts. There was, they made it a community, and there was that support. So I fear that long term, we're going to have more and more people fail these injections. You won't fail if you do it right. come up with your diet plan, stick with it, and just use the shot to manage the cravings. You got to still exercise. I can't tell you how many people on these medications are still not hitting the gym. You flipping kidding me? You got to hit the gym. Though otherwise the weight loss is going to be temporary. You're going to lose your muscle and you're going to lose your metabolism. Fascinating study. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. So did you guys see that headline where in one study or survey, they found that 25% of Gen Zers have brought mommy or daddy to their job interview? Now, I love the Gen Zers. You are not going to hear me criticize the Gen Zers because I have 2 of my own, and I think that generation has had some of the most challenges than some of the other generations. But really? You're bringing mom and dad to your job interview. Apparently it's a thing. So Philadelphia 10 is reporting this, and they say that 1 in 4 Gen Zers have brought a mommy or daddy to a job interview over the past year. This is a new survey of 1,500 Gen Zers by ResumeTemplates.com. 1/4 have had their parents submit the job applications on their behalf. So now that college is out and people are trying to flood the job market, this is very telling. 13% admit to having their parents complete their human resources screening calls. 70% of respondents are having their parents assist them with the job search. Nearly half say they did so because their parents' input on resume writing or job interviewing techniques were superior to their own. Have you ever heard of a generation who says that their parents are skilled, let alone better than them? This is something I thought we would never, ever see. I love the Gen Zs, but I am blown away by that. And especially since I have my kids who think they're smarter than me. So really, you have a kid that thinks you're smarter than them? Wow. Especially college age? It's pretty impressive. That's pretty significant. Nearly half said, again, they thought their parents' input was more superior than theirs. 1/3 said it was because they didn't know how to effectively communicate with hiring managers. And an equal percentage admitted to simply being unmotivated to get out into the job market. 1/3 said they didn't know how to work with hiring managers. That's college fault. You have a college degree and you don't know how to interact with the hiring manager. That's on the college. Really, the college didn't help you with your interview skills. I go to UNLV and I work with the pre-med students on their residency or are on their medical school interviews. I mean, what good is them having a pre-medical degree if they can't get into medical school? You have to have, and even if it's not going to be a course, bring in resources to help teach these students. So this is very, very telling for a child to bring their mom or dad to their interview. Now, I don't know if the parent is actually sitting there, but maybe the child needs the support. But what to me this means is the Gen Zs have a much different relationship with their parents. And most Gen Z's parents are Gen X. Did that mean we did a good job in parenting? Or did we baby them too much? So for me, a good relationship with your parent would first rely on how you were disciplined. If you were beat, if you were bullied, if you ended up being scared of your parents, then you got the hell away from them as fast as you could. I think many of us Gen Xers decided to change the way we parented. And so that is reflective of this, where these kids aren't really fearful of their parents. Parents aren't beating them. Parents aren't bullying them. We're seeing Gen Zs a little bit closer to the parents. Now, some of you will say, well, that could hurt society. It could also help. How many people out there don't have anybody to take care of them? So they have to go to nursing homes and assisted living, and they have, or the state. It would be nice for families to want to be around their older parents. And maybe that's another thing Gen X saw. They saw their traditionalist grandparents, have to go to nursing homes because that was the era where you started to see older people age longer and need assisted living. And maybe they were like, wait a second. All right, I don't want to be like my grandma where nobody wants to take care of them. So I'm going to appreciate my kids more. So it's a fascinating, I like to look at these studies as what else is it reflective of? And it sounds like it's reflective of a little bit of a change in the relationship and the dynamics between a child and their parent. Now, it could also be the child is living on their parent and relying on their parent. So if you are relying financially on the parent, you're putting up with them a little bit better because the parent could say, out, see ya, bye, leave. So the kids are like, you know what? I don't think my parents are that bad. They're paying for me. So it could also be a dependency issue. These kids are more dependent. But a child not motivated to get a job, you could fix that motivation lickety split. Child's not motivated if they're still getting fed, if they still have a roof. For me, I wouldn't have a home. There would be no place for me to live. So yeah, I got out there and I got a job. I got a job before I went to class. I'd even skip class to work. I waited tables in medical school because I needed the money to support myself. That's just how it was. So, the motivation, I think us Gen Zers might be screwing up on. And so your child needs to be motivated to hunt, to fish, to farm, to take care of themselves. If your adult child doesn't know how to take care of themselves in a survival situation, you failed. Get that child survival ready. Now, what about the child thinking their parents know better about this than them? Well, what changed? Well, the Gen Zs didn't work in fast food like we did. The Gen Zs didn't work while going to school. Me, I held 3 part-time jobs when I was going to UNLV in college because I would have a class at 8 a.m. I'd have a class at noon so I could at least tutor or work or I could go. Every block of time I had, weekends, nights, I would work. And I was able to put together maybe 50, 60 hours of work to help support myself and pay for classes and help out some family members, etc. And so I know how to work. I know how to get a job. I know how to interview for a job. But a lot of these Gen Zs, they haven't had one job. When they did go to McDonald's or Jack in the Box or fast food, it was adults who were working to support their families. It was a different mix. Some of these kids might have worked for their parents, or some of these kids just didn't work. So you now have college graduates who have never held a part-time job. that is changing things. If you've worked a part-time job since you were 16 or 15 and a half, you have a much different approach to the environment or the labor sector. So, I think we need to find a balance. I think what we are doing wrong with our Gen Z generation is we are, one, not listening to them and understanding their issues. Their world is not our world. Gen X, baby boomer, older millennial, their world is different. It's AI, it's tech, it's diversity. It's not you do a good job and you get the job. It's you have to fit the mold that job wants. And so you need to teach your child how to market themselves and make sure that they show that employer that what they can bring and how they can help. And the Gen Zs have not been doing what we did, which helped our job sector. Now they have a whole different landscape, and their landscape keeps evolving. I don't know what the hell the medical field is going to look like. I think it's going to be AI. People don't want doctors. They want to just type in what they want, get their medicine, and not even face a doctor. People don't want pap smears. They don't want their physicals. They don't want... So medicine is changing. Trust me. Education is changing. Law is changing. But I wouldn't bring your parent into the room. It's a bad look. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So this headline is fascinating. This headline came out today, where experts have discovered the earliest record of Jesus's childhood after deciphering a 2,000-year-old Egyptian manuscript. This is one of the earliest known copies of a story about Jesus performing a miracle as a child. And it was discovered on an ancient Egyptian manuscript. It's a 2,000-year-old paper. It's a papyrus of it's a piece, which is called a piece, a 2,000-year-old piece of material. It predates modern paper. And it tells the story of the vivification of the sparrows when the 5-year-old Messiah is said to have turned clay pigeons into live birds, also known as the second miracle. And they believe that when they look at the style of handwriting, that it might have been an exercise in class where students wrote this. It might have been a religious school or regular school during the 4th or 5th century Egypt. 4th or 5th century Egypt at the time was Christian. They say the original story of Jesus' miracle is thought to have been written around the 2nd century as part of the infancy Gospel of Thomas, a book detailing Jesus of Nazareth's youth that was ultimately excluded from the Bible. They say, but until this discovery, the earliest written example of the Gospel was from the 11th century. Now, this piece was, I guess, at the Hamburg State and University Library in Hamburg, Germany. And they stumbled upon it when analyzing manuscripts and noticed Jesus' name in the text. They thought it was some everyday document, maybe a private letter or shopping list, because the handwriting seemed clumsy. It didn't look like it was a formal written piece. But then they're like, wait a second, this could have been from a school and students. So they noticed the word Jesus in the text. I'm trying to look at the text right now. I can't read ancient Egyptian, so unfortunately, but then they looked at other symbols and they deciphered it and realized that it was describing Jesus' life from the ages of 5 to 12, written during the 2nd century. Fascinating. Now, they say the gospel was omitted from the Bible because they thought it was inauthentic. Also, the Bible, they said, was focusing on Jesus' ministry, miracles, and what led up to his dying on the cross. So in the miracle, the second miracle, Jesus was 5 years old, playing in a stream, molding 12 sparrows out of soft clay in the riverbed mud. His father Joseph notices what's he doing, asks him why he's molding clay on the Sabbath, because that was the holy day of worship. And then Jesus orders the clay figures to take flight as living birds. They end up doing that. So it's amazing, for them to see this and find this. But they had the piece of papyrus. They had that with them. They just didn't know what they had. So fascinating stuff. Definitely read up on that. Wow. And I was near Hamburg, Germany. That's wow. They got amazing. By the way, the religious artifacts and the churches and in Europe, what they were able to protect and hold and try, especially with all the destruction from World War II, it's amazing. And, definitely if you're able to, go to Europe, do so. It's amazing, especially from a religious standpoint. All right. The FDA has recalled certain brands of chocolates because of a seizure risk. What is going on here? Okay. Chocolate is fine. But there was a 15-year-old girl and 5 others who had been hospitalized after eating chocolates infused with THC and mushrooms. The patients ended up suffering seizures, needed to be intubated, put on ventilators and intensive care units because they consumed at least one piece of a Diamond Shrooms chocolate bar. Diamond Shrooms, like shrooms but spelled differently. It contained THC and a proprietary blend of mushrooms, quote unquote, with a kick. Now, it's spelled SHRUUMZ, but it sounds like shrooms, like mushrooms. Now, mushrooms that contain the psilocybin, it's illegal at the federal level. But what they had apparently still got under the radar. We don't know why it's being marketed or what the background is, but these mushrooms might have contained mycotoxins, which ended up causing seizures. FDA is urging people to not consume the bars. Apparently, they're sold nationwide. FDA has told stores to take them off the shelves. Steve Dudley, director of the Arizona Poison Centers, where most of the illnesses are reported, said while these products claim to contain only natural ingredients and no scheduled drugs, there is clearly something toxic occurring. They said, we've seen the same phenomenon of people eating the chocolate bar, then seizing, losing consciousness, and having to be intubated. One of them was 15 years old. I would lose my mind if my child had to be intubated or seized for something like that. Could have killed him. Thank God, no recorded deaths. They say a total of 8 illnesses across 4 states have been reported to date, the last one happening on June 3rd. Half of the illnesses were in Arizona, 2 were in Indiana, and 1 each in Nevada and Pennsylvania. The bars are sold online or in weed shops. They cost $25 each. And it's called microdosing, where you take small amounts of a drug. People say if they microdose, then they're limiting their risk because they're microdosing. They use the term dose to make it sound all medical, micro being small. But you don't understand some of these things are qualitative instead of quantitative, where just the minute amount is enough to mess with you. And Diamond Shrooms is based in California. According to Daily Mail, has thousands of followers on social media. And there's videos of youngsters trying their products. This should not be marketed to, look at what happened to the company Juul. These should not be marketed to kids. So a mother from Arizona, Tina Griffin, said her 15-year-old daughter and 16-year-old cousin ate them, microdosing, and both ended up on ventilators or in the ICU at the Children's Hospital. What a nightmare. Her daughter now has been taken off the ventilator, discharged from the hospital, and thank God has been improving. I'm not sure about the cousin. So what we need to be aware of is our kids are being exposed to some real dangerous things. And I think what makes it a lot more frustrating for us is when we were growing up, there was before school, after school, maybe the tailgate and weekend parties. Now these kids are being exposed to things at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., anytime they go on their phones or access social media. Which means I remember being at a bus stop and somebody coming up to me with cocaine. I'm like, no, thank you. And I got the hell out of there and I ran home. But there was a way where there were finite amounts of opportunities for people to approach you for drugs. Now it's infinite. And these kids are being approached in private under the guise of social media, with parents not being wiser. People always say, oh, parents are so anti-social media. They're anti-social media because they don't want their child buying a Percocet that is laced with fentanyl and then dying in their rooms, like we've seen some children do. I'm fortunate that my children are adults now, and they are very wary of the risks of social media and drugs and things like that. But for those of you having teenagers, and your kids are like, I don't do drugs. Well, what are you doing on social media? Oh, I'm a part of a Swiftie group. It's all Swiftie stuff, only Taylor Swift stuff, Mom, so back off. Are we sure it's all about Taylor Swift? Don't you think some of these individuals could try to hijack those sites and use them to infiltrate our youth? So be aware of what your kids are doing. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.